All right, first I'm going to show you my audience. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on FaceTime and 6. Hello, my name is Tomas Walsh. Today I'm going to be giving you a little bit of instruction on a couple of things here. I'm going to talk to you about the AHA, EKGs, and the future of EKGs. Now, I just said a whole lot of technical terms, so let me break it down before we begin, okay? The AHA is the American Heart Association, and EKG is an electrocardiogram. And like I said, we're going to discuss further about where EKGs are headed and how we're improving as a medical field. So let me start first with a little bit of history on the AHA and what they are all about. Now, the AHA, the American Heart Association, started on June 10th, 1924, right here in our very own Chicago, when 6 cardiologists came together and they had a small scientific group where they would discuss, further movements in cardiology and how to, go farther, learn more about the heart. But they decided to come together and establish a volunteer health organization that would raise money and educate the entire world or the entire US about cardiology so that it's no longer this scary topic and that it's easy to digest, okay? So currently, there are 35 million volunteer members of the American Heart Association. Now, these 35 million members are people who donate, people who teach, and people who learn and who eventually become donators, right? Let me see here. Now, the AHA has done many things for cardiology as a whole, right? They have led to many developments. They have led to artificial heart valves, the first implementation of an internal pacemaker, and even pioneering microsurgery. Now, microsurgery is really used when they can take a small camera and go up through great vessels in the leg and pull out a clot, whether that's in the heart, whether that's in the brain. Now, moving forward a little bit, we're going to go to EKGs. Like I said, EKGs are electrocardiograms. Now, electrocardiograms are essentially looking at the heart through the skin and seeing what the heart's doing, okay? So the first EKG was transmitted in 1970 from an ambulance to a hospital. Now, the first ever EKG was taken in 1895 by William Einstein. Now that's crazy that the first one ever was in 1895. Now the first one in an ambulance was 1970. It shows you really how much they had to progress before it can become as easy as throwing a couple of stickers on and getting an image of the heart, right? So an EKG is broken down very simply into 5 waves. Now it's very much a simplification, but essentially 5 waves. Now, I know you've seen the squiggly lines on any, medical show or anything like that. So today I'm going to break it down a little bit. What are these 5 waves? What do they mean? What is the heart doing during these 5 waves, right? So the 5 waves that we have are the P wave, the Q wave, the R wave, the S wave, and the T wave. P, Q, R, S, T. It's just that little section of the alphabet. Now the P wave is, first actually, let's discuss a little bit about heart anatomy. So the heart's broken up into 4 chambers, the 2 atrias and the 2 ventricles. Now those 2 atrias are kind of like your loading phases. That's what I like to call them. They fill with blood, and then when they contract, they push blood into the ventricles. Now the ventricles are very hard work, and those are the big muscles in the heart that push all the blood into the rest of your body. So this P wave is what we call atrial depolarization. Now that's a crazy word that I just said. But essentially all this means is that the atria, those 2 top vessels, are squeezing. They're pushing the blood down into the ventricles. Now, the QRS, as you can see, is a large motion, right? This is a huge electrical image right here. So this QRS is the ventricles contracting. That's the depolarization of the ventricles. Now, what you can't see in here is the repolarization of the atria. That is just too small of electrical current for these to pick up, right? And then of course we have our T wave, which is the repolarization of the ventricles. I know that sounds crazy, but Really, it's super simple when you just break it down into PQRST. Now, this is what we use in a pre-hospital environment to diagnose things like heart attacks and infarction and all of these things that can be dangerous to you, and to make your trip from the hospital, the ER room, and then to a greater care facility faster and more efficient, right? So we've talked about AHA, the AHA and what they're doing. Then we've also talked about EKGs and what the heart's doing, right? But as we move forward as a society, EKGs are no longer enough. Now we have to move forward and see the heart in more ways. Now that's when we get to point of care ultrasound. Now ultrasound, you've heard that word before. Ultrasound is what the moms go get to see the baby, right? It's essentially the same thing. It's taking a look deeper inside of the chest wall. We're using especially for abdominal and for cardiac issues. A couple of things that can be diagnosed with point of care ultrasound are pneumothoraxes, pericardial tamponade, triple A's, aortic aneurysms, and then also cardiac arrest. Well, that again, a whole lot of medical mumbo jumbo. Essentially, all of these things are life-threatening injuries that can be diagnosed instantly with point of care ultrasound. Also in cardiac arrest, where the heart is no longer moving, we can look and see the viability of a cardiac arrest. Now today we've gone through the American Heart Association and the wonders that it's doing and is still doing today. We've gone over EKGs and what all those squiggly lines mean, and we've gone over what's going to happen in the future and where the world is going. All of this information has been obtained through credible documents. A couple of names that I'm going to say are Dr. Rooney, Dr. Amaro, and Dr. Salam. Thank you so much, and I hope you learned something.